Good morning, everybody, from a freezing cold Yorkshire. But today we are going to talk about the UK's biggest flour tip. And why do I think this is important? Because I have been, if you've noticed, I've been sidestepping doing videos about flour tipping and stuff like that. Because to be fair, I could do it all day long. And like I've said to everybody, I do a video on flour tipping, I get millions of views. And, you could make a full-time job out of it on YouTube or TikTok, just doing videos about flour tipping. But I like to consider, somebody, myself, as somebody who's actually like in the waste industry, because I do skips every day. I build skip trucks for you people, to use and stuff like that. So I don't want to just be doing flour tipping, but this one is something that we've got to look at. So this full situation in Oxford, the council have, give some sizes and estimates. So I've gone on Google Earth and I've looked at the actual size of the full site. We're going to look at loads of videos in here and I'm going to explain how this kind of thing happens, right? So I do understand that this field is well out the way where anybody could see it. So, I can't imagine it's been, reported before. It might have done just the sheer volume of loads that must have gone in there. We're talking 500 or 600 loads, maybe up to 1,000 loads have gone in that site. I've looked at because you're in the waste industry, you'll understand how many loads it takes to do things. When I'm reading this stuff on Sky News and all, they ain't got a clue. They're like, one of them said there's tens of loads here, tens. There's, probably close to 1,000. One of them said there's hundreds of tons. It's thousands of tons. Other people said it's tens of thousands of tons. They don't really know exactly how to work stuff out. So we are going to look at all of that and a look at the site. So, but the reason I've done this video is, if you've got a waste transfer station, I will guarantee that this year you have had points on your license for something. This year, last year, when the environment issue clamped down, they clamped down on us, didn't they? And, if you had, I don't know, a bit of rubbish outside, we got some points or this, that and the other. In the old days, let's say you had a digger broken down, the environment issue come down, and what they would say to you is, look, get that moved, send me a text at the end of the day or an email just to show that you've cleared it, and everybody was happy. But now, if they see something, bang, it's points, and what that does is puts your permit up. And what that does is, let's say, for instance, your permit doubles, right? So our permits in the UK, between 5 and 10 grand. Say you get a couple of visits and your permit goes up double. Let's say the fine, will go up to, it's not a fine, but points. You get points and your permit doubles. Let's say it goes up 5,000 a year. Some of these people doing flour tipping without a permit are not getting fines of £5,000. This site here, somebody's going to get some jail time. There's no ways about it. But it's going to be a year, maybe, and they would have earned 4 million, so maybe 3 or 4 million quid off this site, give or take. That's basing it on landfill, the full rate of landfill. What you've got to remember is, not much waste actually goes to landfill in the grand scheme of things. So, they've probably only earned half of that amount of money, and not the full amount that we're going to discuss here. They've probably earned maybe £1 million, but, the potential loss to the revenue would be probably more like 5 million. I can tell you, in the waste industry, to be offered a cheap tip is quite a regular occurrence. And what the boys with transfer stations do is we usually don't get involved with them. But I can tell you, it is a regular occurrence, at least once a week, where somebody's got a cheap tip and things like that. And the going rate is not the £150 a tonne landfill tax. It's about anywhere from 50 to 80 quid. It's never more than that. And what people got wise to is, years ago, you'd send a load of waste out, say from, somebody's transfer station, and you hadn't shredded it. They'd send it somewhere to one of these sites. Because it wasn't shredded, they could get all the details off bits of paper. You get for instance, a business card from CRJ, for instance. There'd be a business card in there, and then they go back there and say, right, mate, where have you been in the last 2 weeks? He'd say, right, I've been to see Billy, and Billy, I left him my business card, and there you go. That's it. I am linked into these crimes. So what actually happened over the years is people realise, well, what we're going to do is we're just going to shred it, and then there's absolutely no proof whatsoever of where it comes because it is so small. However, as you will see in one of these videos, they've actually fucked up somebody because there's some receipts in the waste. What the receipt will do is very, very simple. On a receipt from a shop, you have a thing called a merchant ID. I know this because I've got a card machine and I've seen obviously the receipt on the video, what the TVs have been taking, the BBC and everybody. The Environment Agency will get that receipt. I'm using that as an example. It could be anything. They'll get a receipt and they will then take that receipt to the people who do the merchant ID, find out what that merchant ID and who it relates to. They'll go back to the shop. They will ask the shop who collects their waste. And then once that waste is obviously from that shop, it will go somewhere to a transfer station and they're going to follow it through all the stages back to the transfer station that sent it out to somebody. And I've been in this situation before where someone's took waste and hadn't disposed of it properly in Arctics. What they will do is they'll give him a permit, they'll give him all the paperwork so it looks completely genuine. But when the Environment Agency check exactly where it went, it will go nowhere. I get asked quite often when somebody leaves a bit of commercial waste somewhere, locally, they'll say, "Oh, Billy, can I have a transfer note to cover this load?" I'm like, can you fuck? And it will be the exact same with this. This receipt's going to have turned up. They're going to forward it back to the transfer station that it inevitably ended up in. And then the Environment Agency are going to ask where it went. They're going to find out how many loads at that particular transfer station sent out. Let's say it's 50, 60 loads. And I guarantee whoever owns that transfer station will not be taking the full rap for this. And they will buckle, so to speak. And that's why, a lot of people don't get involved in this kind of thing. And at the end of the day, I know there's some nasty people out there, but whoever gets lumbered with this job could be, in for 3-4 years of jail, and millions and millions in fines, proceeds of crime for doing what they've done. So let's have a look at the UK's biggest fly tip. Just to give you a little bit of context before we start the video, this field where the yellow cross is, how it looked before they started using it as a tip, and it's just outside Oxford. So let's see what it looks like now.
What you're looking at here is fly tipping on a scale like no other. Dumped in a field in Oxfordshire, the road of rubbish, the same size as the dual carriageway next to it. Its terrain is bumpy, a disgusting, never-ending pile of illegal waste. Weighing hundreds of tonnes, it's been dumped between the River Cherwell and the A34 near Kidlington.
It's revolting, it's shredded waste, and some of that waste is now tumbling into the river and being swept downstream.
Questions about the cost of the clean-up. The Environment Agency is responsible for dealing with this. They're currently blocking off the site and say specialist officers are investigating waste dumped near the A34 at Kidlington. Their role will be to find out who left the waste there and take appropriate action. We share the public's anger about incidents like this, which is why we take action against those responsible for waste crime. Who these people are and how they went unnoticed is still to be determined. Their actions covert, but what they left behind is hard to miss.
Right, let's have a look roughly at what we are looking at in terms of revenue to get rid of this pile of rubbish. So the council have said that it's going to be more than their annual budget, which is about 700 million for Oxford Council. I can guarantee it's not going to be that. So looking at this site, what I did is I went on Google Earth and did the perimeter, which was here on the screen now, so you can have a look. I can't see it because I'm actually recording the video, so I can't see it, but I have got on this screen, because I have two screens, I've got my workings out. So we've got 5500 metre cubed times by 10 metres. So what that is we work out the perimeter of the site, which is the footprint around the outside, and how many square metres it is. And then we times it by 10, which will give you it in cubic metres. So we've got 50,500 cubic metres. This is very, very on the bottom end, because you can't, one of the places said it was 7 metres high, one said 10, one 6. So I'm just working in between somewhere around about that. Right, shredded waste. The average load, so a walking floor, I've also done this very conservative. So a walking floor, trailer is usually about 120 cubic meters in size, give or take. Some are 140. So what I've done is I've worked it out on a 100 meter cube. So I've rounded it down because shredded waste usually doesn't fill a trailer up. So it comes out at about 505 loads. This is the absolute bare minimum. So like I say, I'm working on the bottom end of the scale. So 500 to 700 loads it works out, give or take, depending on how much is on the truck. So based on 27 tonne on a walking floor at £150 a tonne, as you will see on the screen, it's £4,050 per load. So the grand total of what has been tipped on this site is basically, call it 2.1 million. This is obviously in terms of if we were sending it to a proper disposal site, that's what this company or whoever's been tipping there would have paid, 2.1 million. Haulage and manpower, 450,000, which I've come up with that number, which is to put, 3 or 4 machines on there for a couple of months, because it would take 2 months. And, the amount of trucks you're going to have on there to move this amount of gear is mental, and, obviously these people are saying it's more than it's going to be 700 million or what. It's just ridiculous. So the full total for clearing this site, I would estimate to be 3 million. This is the absolute bottom that it will cost, because I've only done 450 grand, which is for machinery, transport, clearing up, and that is also not including doing, so what happens is when you put a lot of material on top of soil, you sometimes have to take a big layer of soil off the top, a couple 100 mil, so that can be massively expensive because it potentially could be hazardous. So the total bill for clearing this site is going to be £3 million. That's just on the waste there. That's, like I say, very conservative, and I would expect it to be up to 6 million. However, the other problem that we've got is that these, when the Environment Agency work out these, prices to get rid of it, they do it properly. So it'll all go to landfill, or it'll all go for RDF. The guy who's actually done this, or the woman who's filled this site up, they would have only probably got somewhere in the region, I would have thought, if it's actually, 3 million to do it properly, probably a million and a half. But obviously, if it's not somebody might just cut the gates open, it might have been an operating site. We don't know a lot of details at the minute. But like I say, it's interesting. And just, before I go, I hope you've enjoyed the video, but just remember, when you go to, and I've actually done this with brokers, so like I say, I'm no guy who's good at reading and writing, I'm certainly not, but, I've got a bit of common sense. When you are sending loads out, you want to see a transfer note, you want to see the permit, and to do, to be fully compliant, you want to check the site that the waste is going to. So obviously somebody can ring you up and say, we're going to take this, they send you a permit, they send you a waste transfer note, and it could end up anywhere. But if you actually contact the site it's going to, make sure it's going there, between them 3 things, you are completely covered. So the Environment Agency can come down and say, right, where did your waste go? It went there. And they'll say, well, it didn't go there. But as long as you've got the paperwork to show that you did all your checks that you can reasonably do, and I've had this conversation before, sorry about my phone keeps beeping, as long as you've done the, all the checks that you can do, what more can be asked of you? You can't physically follow every lorry. But, with this sort of job, I would have thought somebody would be, just on the old, £50 a tonne thing, and they've probably not even made as much money on this job. But the problem is now it is in the papers and it is going to be massive news. Like I say, the Environment Agency, I can guarantee you, will not be paying to clear this waste. It'll be down to the local council. The Environment Agency, I don't think, have any liability with clearing things like this. It will be the government. And the reason this is happening is because the government keep putting landfill tax up, and while they, while people can earn 3, 4, 5 million quid or whatever, they'll keep doing it, won't they? So keep that in your mind. I'll see you all soon. I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time. Bye.